There was a war where the countries did not fight directly. I mean, a war where other countries face each other, but the two main ones do not. Is that possible? The answer is yes, and it was the Cold War. So, welcome to this video and let's learn about it.
Welcome back to your daily lesson of history. Today we're going to talk about the Cold War, okay? But I think that you may have some questions, okay? Well, the first one is, why is it called Cold War? Then, which was the main battlefield? And finally, which were the countries that were fighting during this brutal war? Now, let's move on. Well, the Cold War was a period of geopolitical tension between the United States and the Soviet Union. Okay, it was geopolitical and geographical, okay? It happened since 1949 to 1991. It happened after the World War II. The world was divided during the Cold War. We did have the Eastern Europe and Western Europe, okay? Western Europe was guided by the United States, Great Britain, Spain, Portugal, France, and Western Germany. Then we have the Eastern Blockade, which was the one guided by the Soviet Union, Yugoslavia, China, Ukraine, and Eastern Germany. But why was it called Cold War? Was it because it happened during a cold winter? Nah. It was because there was no large scale fighting, okay? There was no gun, there was no dead bodies, there was no battlefield, okay? It was more like a verbal war, a war of fear between these two superpowers that were United States and the Soviet Union, okay? It was a geographical and geopolitical because talking about the geopolitical war, the United States wanted a world of democracy. The Soviet Union wanted a world of communism. So there was a massive clash between these two geopolitical thinkings. Okay, so talking about the geographical war, it all happened when the United States wanted to approve the Plan Marshall, the plan that the Soviet Union didn't want to take it. Why? Because the United States was the great power. They have all the money. Because the World War II happened in Europe, not in America. So America was not destroyed, such as Europe. So United States gave money to many countries, and they accepted to, but they have to pay a big debt to United States. Then the Soviet Union didn't allow it, so that's why they decided to divide the continent. And the main country that suffered all this was Germany, with the Great Wall of Berlin. All this division of Europe was called containment, okay? The keyword was containment. The division of Europe, dividing Germany into Eastern and Western Germany. Then we have to talk about the nuclear war. Okay, nuclear, this word was the fearless word during this period back in time. Why? Because the Soviet Union started to testing some nuclear weapons, and then the United States, when heard that the Soviet were testing weapons, the United States say that they will have a bigger bomb, which was called the H bomb, the hydrogen bomb, a nuclear bomb. And then Joseph Stalin said that it was not just a hydrogen bomb, it was the super bomb, it was a massive destruction bomb. That's why nuclear gained most power during this period. Also, we have to remember that a few years before the Cold War come to an end, it happened the catastrophe of Chernobyl. Now, let's move on to the space race.
The Cold War and the Space Race. Beginning in the late 1950s, space would become another dramatic arena of the world's two great powers, the democratic, capitalist United States and the communist Soviet Union against each other. Each side sought to prove the superiority of its technology, its military firepower, and by extension, its political economic system. On October 4, 1957, a Soviet R-7 intercontinental ballistic missile was launched and called Sputnik, Russian for traveling companion. It was the first world's artificial satellite and the first man-made object to be placed into the Earth's orbit. Sputnik's launch came as a surprise and not a pleasant one to most Americans. In the United States, space was seen as the next frontier, a logical extension of the grand American tradition of exploration. And it was crucial not to lose too much ground to the Soviets. In addition, this demonstration of the overwhelming power of the R-7 missile, seemingly capable of delivering a nuclear warhead into US airspace, made gathering intelligence about Soviet military activities particularly urgent. In 1958, the US launched its own satellite, Explorer 1, designed by the US Army under the direction of rocket scientist Wernher von Braun, and what came to be known as the space race was underway. That same year, President Dwight Eisenhower signed a public order creating the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, better known as NASA, a federal agency dedicated to space exploration, as well as several programs seeking to exploit the military potential of space. Still, the Soviets were one step ahead, launching the first man into space in April 1961, called Yuri Gagarin. On May, after Alan Shepard became the first American man in space, President John F. Kennedy made the bold public claim that the US would land a man on the moon by the end of the decade. His prediction came true on July 20, 1969, when Neil Armstrong of NASA's Apollo 11 mission became the first man to set foot on the moon, effectively winning the space race for the Americans. US astronauts came to be seen as the ultimate American heroes. Soviets, in turn, were pictured as the ultimate villains, with their massive, relentless efforts to surpass America and prove the power of the communist system.
The Cold War and the Red Scare.
Now we focus on the Red Scare. Meanwhile, beginning in 1947, the House Un-American Activity Committee, or HUAC, brought the Cold War home in another way. The committee began a series of hearings designed to show that communist subversion in the United States was alive and well. In Hollywood, the House Un-American Committee forced hundreds of people who work in the movie industry to renounce left-wing political belief and testify against one another. More than 500 people lost their jobs. Many of these blacklisted writers, directors, actors, and others were unable to work again for more than a decade. The House Un-American Activities Committee also accused State Department workers of engaging in subversive activities. Soon, other anti-communist politicians, most notably Senator Joseph McCarthy, explained this proved to include anyone who worked in a federal government. Thousands of federal employees were investigated, fired, and even prosecuted as this anti-communist hysteria spread throughout the 1950s. Liberal college professors lost their jobs. People were asked to testify against college, and loyalty oaths became commonplace. In a bit of extra information that you may not have known, one of the members of the House Un-American Activity Committee in the late 1940s was a first-term U.S. representative from California named Richard Nixon. Nixon played a prominent role in the Alger his spy hearings in 1948. 20 years later, he was elected the 37th President of the United States.
The Cold War abroad. Okay, this war was a proxy war. And what is it? It's a war fought between groups or smaller countries that each represent the interests of other larger powers, and many have help and support from this. If we talk about the Cold War abroad, we can divide it in June 1950, the first military action of the Cold War. Okay, the first military action of the Cold War. The Soviet-backed North Korean People's Army invited its pro-Western neighbor to the show. So the USA decided to intervene in it, and Truman sent the American military into Korea. But the Korean War dragged to a stalemate and ended in 1953. Well, it's a war paused. 1955. The North Atlantic Treaty Organization. Okay, then we have 1955. The United States and other members of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO, made West Germany a member of this organization and permitted to remilitarize. Then the Soviets responded with the Warsaw Pact, a mutual defense organization between the Soviet Union, Albania, Poland, Romania, and other countries. Then we have the early 1960s. President Kennedy faced a number of troubling situations in his own hemisphere. Cuban Missile Crisis. Okay, first, the Cuban Missile Crisis. It was a major confrontation in 1962 that brought the United States and the Soviet Union close to war over the presence of Soviet nuclear armed ballistic missiles in Cuba. Fortunately, nothing really bad happened. I mean, there wasn't a war. Vietnam War. Okay, finally we had Vietnam War. Although this war began in 1955, the conflict was intensified by the ongoing Cold War between the United States and the Soviet Union. So, the communist government of North Vietnam against South Vietnam. But communist forces ended the war by seizing the control of South Vietnam in 1975, and the country was unified as the Socialist Republic of Vietnam the following year. And also we have the Berlin Wall, but that is something that my classmate is gonna explain you. So, in conclusion, the Cold War abroad was a proxy war because there wasn't a direct confrontation between the United States and the Soviet Union.
The end of the Cold War. Today I'm going to talk you about the end of the Cold War and its effects. As an introduction, we have to know that the Cold War lasted around of 4 years. But it is in 1991 when the war is over due to the dissolution of the Soviet Union. This was a process that began in 1985 for political instability of the country. And for being exactly, the war ended on December 25th, of 1991, the effects of the Cold War. As one of the most important events in our recent history, this event had a big impact in the world. So now I'm going to share with you uh, four for the situation that happened after this war. The first one is the dissolution of the Soviet Union and the creation of 15 new republics, being Russia the most important. So, uh, in this case, the Soviet Union was divided in 15 new countries. So, but the principal country was Russia. The reunification of Germany after the fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989. So this event was fundamental for the fall of communism. So this event was a big loss for the Soviet Union. In the third one, we have the accumulation of nuclear weapons by the two countries, by United States and the Soviet Union, now um, Russia. So if you can see the news, you are going to see some problems that in the third one we have the accumulation of nuclear weapons by the two countries, by United States and the Soviet Union, now Russia. So if you can see the news, you are going to see some problems that we have in with this topic, because now there are many nuclear weapons around the world, so this is something that have lasted until today. Finally, the fourth one is the USA becoming the most powerful country of the world. So this is because the fall of the communism meant the victory of the capitalism over the communism, and this model will become the most used in the world. So that's why the United States became the first country of the world. So as a conclusion, I can say that this event is so important to understand what is happening in this time, because even this happened 30 years ago, we are suffering some effects that this war caused. So that's why that's why it's important to understand about this topic, about this war. And that's all from me, from my group. I hope you have enjoyed and you have learned a lot about this topic. So thank you for your attention.